This is Pete Moore on Halo Talks NYC. I have the pleasure of bringing straight from Bozeman, Montana, the man, the myth, the legend in the industry, Steve Roderick, Ridge Athletic. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, Pete. It's my pleasure.
Awesome. Well, you've been doing this now since 2002 by building what I would say the mecca of fitness in Bozeman. So give us your background, how you got involved in the industry. You've been, involved from day one in this sector, and also a varsity athlete, which I'm hoping to become one day in college. So give us your personal background, and then why you've dedicated your life to this Halo sector.
Well, starting with the varsity athlete, Rudy comes to mind, but I was blessed to have a experience with a lot of athletics, which in life can bring a lot of different values, and I was very fortunate to meet a lot of great people and have good experiences. As you mentioned, and I thought about the genesis of my athletic club experience. Ironically, started like 35 years ago. Before that, I was and always had been a participant in fitness facilities, from Nautilus facilities to, Golds to multiple. So as a member, I knew what it was about, or I felt I knew what it was about. And like I said, ironically, I was in a bar, and this was about 1991, and I was in the sporting goods industry at the time, and living in Wyoming. I knew these three brothers that had a big oil field construction company. This was in Gillette, Wyoming. We're sitting around commiserating on the day, having fun, and one brother says, "Hey, Steve, you ought to take over that club." He says that SOB is 3 months behind on rent. He says, "You love that place." And I'm pretty sure we're just, shooting the breeze. I say, "I'd do that." And not paying attention. And he gets up and I think he's just going to the bathroom or something. He comes back in about 20 minutes because it was a big strip mall and buildings that this company also owned, as well as their construction company. And he comes back with the wad of keys, drops them in the middle of the table. He says, "You take over tomorrow and you meet your employees at 7 a.m.
That's funny.
And I was awestruck. And, they say don't write a check with your mouth that your body can't cash. And it was a 30,000 square foot facility. And that was my start. And I knew little in regards to running a fitness facility, but that's where it all started.
Wow. So how did you get back from Wyoming in the oil fields to Bozeman, Montana?
Well, I got involved, and, I made some calls as life is, made up of a bunch of relationships, and trying to find out what I could about the fitness industry, knowing I was taken over the next day. One piece of information I checked that made me apprehensive was I checked the Better Business Bureau, and at that time, the fitness industry was ranked number 2 at the bottom, just above used car salesmen. And I was going, it didn't make sense to me because I felt that it could bring a lot of value to people. With that, it was a facility in Gillette, Wyoming, as I mentioned, and just took over and was all in to figure it out, and spent some time there. But coming to the understanding that, God, all the things I'd like to make and change, I would like to be able to do a facility from the ground up. Mm-hmm. And that started the dream, the vision, the goal, and was fortunate enough through a couple different moves to build this facility in Wyoming up a bit. I sold it, and that ended up being the first time I was worth anything. And it wasn't a lot, but it was enough to get the ball rolling in Bozeman, Montana, as I moved my family back to Bozeman and started the planning, which was about a 4.5-year process of chasing money and putting a deal together. And that's where it started.
Got it. So when you built this location in 2002, as you and I toured the market several months ago, you were really kind of in the outskirts of town, I would say, from where Bozeman has kind of evolved into. So, talk about having a vision or basically just saying, hey, I just need a piece of land and I'll go as far as I think people will drive. And then over time, that kind of becomes, the central part of Bozeman. Part of that you can say is vision. Part of it's like, hey, it's going to evolve at some point, and now you're kind of like in the epicenter of where you want to be. So talk about either that vision or just the way things work in the world.
Well, it was a process.
Yeah.
The vision started off with trying to learn about the industry, and took some time to travel across the country to multiple facilities that I was learning were the best of the best. And so I started doing that, as well as posturing to find, a location. In the process, that seed money I had, I bought out a facility in Bozeman, and also partnered or worked with a gentleman that had a downtown facility. And he was actually a developer, not an operator.
Yep.
And he had the land and the vision, to build out here, and it was way out of town at that point. And I looked at it, and ultimately we put a deal together to buy this piece of land. And the commitment was we would buy his business downtown, which was a smaller downtown fitness facility, and buy the land. And he was going to give us one price if we got it open by, a certain date. And that was all tied to, he wanted to have this development get kicked off. And 2.5 years later, about 3 different banks saying no. And, everything else from pre-selling executive memberships to come up with the final piece of cash to close the deal. It got done.
You kept the downtown location, which is now kind of more of like a satellite or, a hub and spoke type of model. How important was it for you to maintain that downtown presence, and given things that are going on in town, kind of to build the brand equity of the Ridge, to say, hey, look, here's your kind of boutique. You can do strength and cardio here, and I'm going to feed you into the main club. Because it seems to have worked very effectively for you in Bozeman.
Yeah, the equity, brand equity, but also the synergy with downtown being as it is, the middle of the business district. It was good to build the relationships, maintain the relationships down there, pushing the new project, because that was going to be the bread and butter of the business model of it. The actual viability of downtown, as I was learning how to go through the books on a fitness business, it was thin. But with the onset of the development of the new and bigger and more expanded Ridge vision on the west end of town, also brought downtown to life. And over the years, together we're better. It just makes for a more solid, comprehensive presence in the market.
When you take a look at architecting a 72,000 plus square foot facility, there are certain things that you could have done that you didn't do. There's certain things that you have right now that you're repurposing space and square footage to do. Talk about what you knew about the demographics of town and saying, hey, I'm not in the market to set up a racket sports. Like, that's just not what this market needs. I think you have somewhere between probably like 15%, 20% of like the entire population belongs to Ridge, in Bozeman. So how did you kind of make those trade-offs as you went around and saw what some other people were doing? You definitely could have said, hey, I'm going to put some tennis courts in here. Hey, I'm going to do some outdoor, areas, or I'm going to, over time, pickleball and things like that. But how did you kind of say, this is what the expression of what the Ridge is, and how confident you feel like it serves the demographic that you have today?
Well, that's an interesting question or thought process. We originally drew it up at 75,000 square feet, and based on financing and getting the project to the table, we pared it down to 50. And over the years, we've expanded with the additional facilitation and programs and to get back to about where I thought it would be a good fit, tied to trying to find all the different facilitation and programmings that we felt would hit the market, both currently at that time as well as have the ability to grow. Tennis was being taken care of. We're in a university town, and the Montana State University had a big, and still does have a big tennis facility and program that facilitates both to the university and to the community. So that was one of the thoughts going into that, where we start and stop with programs and facilities. The growth aspect, thinking back, the day we did they call it a soft opening. You invited as many people as possible and put it all together. And I was excited. About an hour before, it came to my mind, ultimately it could be that nobody showed up.
Right.
But,
the entrepreneur's anxiety, right?
Yeah. And lucky as it was, fortunate, we had a great honeymoon. And from that point, we continued to, grow organically because people talk. And that's, that's important. You need to be effective at marketing and promoting, but ultimately, if somebody likes something, you can't keep them quiet. And if they don't like something, they talk even more. So we've been, it's 20, well, at this point, it's 25 years, 30 years since we started the project. And we've been able to incrementally grow year over year, both by the organic aspect, members telling members or friends and family, but also our community's grown, which has been fortunate. As you mentioned, we were in a part of town that did not feel like it was the best location at that point, but ultimately it became closer to the middle of town.
And then when you take a look at, saying that you went from 50,000, then went to 72.5, you also have some land adjacent to the large location that is co-owned that could potentially be developed in the future. Is that correct?
Yes, we have a condominium association, and we built that out. Actually, bought one piece of land, then bought a second one, then ultimately a third piece that is the encompass of this block of land. And we sold off some of the pads, and we wanted to have some businesses that were brought residual value to the campus, while also maintaining area for projected growth and expansion. We have now spaces that are common area and what you can change for cash in lieu, of open space. And so we have opportunity for a couple more expanded areas for future growth.
I'd say to ask you, because a number of companies in the category right now that have similar type of locations, use this term campus, and they use it, for community, but also for the amount of square footage and what you can and can't do on there. When did you start referring to this as a campus? And what do the members feel when they come onto, the Ridge property?
Well, it was probably 5 years into the project that we started looking at it as a campus. We, as any project, it takes some horsepower, aka money, to get things done. We sold to an optometrist, which was a building pad to allow us to get some more revenue to buy another chunk of land. But it also was another business that had great synergy. Not a parking hog, but brought a lot of different types of customers to their building. Then over the years, the next one, as we were referring to campus, we had an opportunity to buy the last piece of land that's basically encompassed by 3 roads, and that was basically the journey.
And then as you take a look at the growth that you've experienced in Bozeman, as a resident, as a business owner, You've got the school that's continuing to grow. You've got people that have moved out there probably during COVID because they can work remotely and be in a much better and a cleaner air and atmosphere. What are some of the other either big companies that are there or some of the growth that you see either from the recreational side, people being focused on outdoors, cost of living, things of that nature that are a big pull right now to Bozeman.
Well, we've been, the recipient of some very positive things, and part of it is, it's your location, and then the different industries that drive growth. One of the aspects is, having an interstate and having Yellowstone National Park drive people here. I think back, at that time when I came to school here, we stood when we went to the airport to go to a football game. We stood next to the bus waiting for the plane to come in, then got on because the airport only had one small building. Now it's an international, fully developed airport. As such, drivers, the photonic industry's very big, and it's been growing exponentially in the market. The whole aspect of tourism drives people in, and it's a big driver. But the accessibility, to your point, Pete, as whether it be COVID or a vacation, people can get here.
Yeah.
And once they're here, then you have an opportunity to share what possibly living and making a life in Bozeman would be. And as a consequence, that's what's been driving the growth.
Yeah. So, as you built out the culture and the employees and the personnel, we've had some time to spend with Robin. She's one of your right-hand team members here. Talk a little bit about the tenure and the work environment that you've cultivated. Part of that might be from that original, dropping the keys on you and saying, "Hey, I got to make it go at my first club." But when you walk around your location, you definitely feel that people are taken care of, that they're respected. The place is really clean. You got a sense that, hey, this is a well-run operation. But what are some of the tenets that you kind of live by and that you manage by?
Well, to start with, I look at myself as a very average guy with, above average work ethic and very above average friends and colleagues. And the wise person told me one time, if you're gonna run a business, he says the thing you need to do is hire people smarter than you. And I said, well, that's going to be easy. And I've been fortunate to have worked in the past and currently with amazing people. You mentioned Robin, but there's a lot to think about. Also, the growth aspect. We start off, we could have had our company party in a phone booth, and now it's well over a couple hundred people, and the good begets good. If you're working with good people, other good people look to be part of a team. I think about my driver would be always share your vision, your dream, and goals with people. And if they aspire to be part of something like that, they're going to be a good candidate.
How much of you running your business to date and looking at the results, not just the financial results, but the emotional and the member and the employee results, do you think harkens back to being an athlete and being like, hey, I want to win. I want to put the best team on the field. I want to have somebody, wear my jersey as if it's like they're an athlete. How much do you think that's kind of infused in how you roll?
I think it's huge, Pete. With that, as we all know, the fitness industry has a lot of different aspects and ways to approach it. Mine started off with, I looked at it and I said, God, I'd like to have a place that my buddies would want to come to and work out. And I'd like to have a place that my parents would love to come to. And I'd like to have a place where the people that aren't athletes or in fitness interest, and so that's been what's really been the catalyst behind what we want to have for facility, what we want to have for programs, and the type of people we want to have on a team. Because if we're all one type of person or interest group, you tend to, attract that type of interest group. If you can stay, tied to the type of people you want to attract, then you'd have to do a better job of achieving that goal.
And the last question I have is, you've got a significant, thousands and thousands of members, and you've definitely catered yourself towards all the different, modalities that people are looking for. And you've focused a lot on strength and cardio, like regular clubs, also a big swim program. As you take a look at catering to families, how has that, been a thrust of what you're doing? And how do you think about the age range that you serve?
The age range that we've been fortunate enough to serve is relatively broad.
Yeah.
And, we've done in the past gatherings and take our demographics, like getting old ain't for sissies party. And and I'm going, well, how many people could that be? We identified them as, at that point when I was younger, 65 seemed old, so we said 65 and older. And we do, we go through our data and we go, God, we got well over 1,500 of people 65 and older, and great turnout. And those things matter. The demographics, you mentioned the family, programming wise, the most important thing to almost all of us ends up being children. And so that's knowing that if you're going to offer something for kids, you want it to be viable. You want it to be reputable. And we started off with a great kids program in the area, and been proud to have that always be a big part of what we've had. I think that's the driver for moms and for dads for sure. The other thing is being there for adolescents, because it's a demographic that's too young to be old, too old to be young.
Yep.
But there are your next customer, and if it's a place where they can feel welcomed and comfortable, it's going to spawn more interest later in their lives.
Awesome. And then the last note is, you've spent a fair amount of time with Rex Roundtable, and I know some of your good friends in the industry also are part of these mastermind groups. You want to just give a little plug to the entrepreneurs that are out there that may be, running their own business and don't have the network to kind of bounce ideas off of how Rex has kind of helped you, become who you are and the success you've had?
Yeah, it's insurmountable, and it's in line with Rex, but it's also in line with, to your point, Pete. If you're not always trying to get better, if you're not trying to learn from somebody else that is doing it in a different way or has good information, you're going to lose your zest, let alone your edge.
Yeah.
It's been something Eddie talk with Rex. Has asked me in the past to give a plug, and my thought and reflection on that is, if I would have ever done anything like that, which I had, I would do it sooner, because it's of huge value, not only on the information share and the inspiration aspect, but you build relationships with people that you can respect. And that's it. Being around people smarter than you helps you become your better version, as well as, being a ambassador of an industry where you're more than just a business that's trying to be viable. You're someplace that hopefully somebody else aspires to.
Yeah. Well, Steve, thanks for coming on the show. This has been great for everybody listening. Long live the large sports complex that has defined communities like Bozeman. Thank you for your contributions to the industry, and look forward to checking in with you and seeing how 2026 goes. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
This is Pete Moore on Halo Talks, your captain speaking. I am the founder and managing partner at Integrity Square. We've been around now for 15 and one half years. We have been helping people like yourselves get capital, do mergers and acquisitions, consulting, strategic advice. in the health, active lifestyle, and outdoor halo sector, trying to help as many entrepreneurs as possible get to the next level and take that inflection point and be the force behind your growth. We are helping companies that have at least $3 million of EBITDA, around $10 million of revenue, and we are positioned to help you get institutional growth capital or to negotiate deals with strategic partners. If you go to integritysq.com/ISQ, you can see our capabilities deck. Happy to set up a consultation at any time. That is free of charge, and we look forward to helping solve obesity, loneliness, and diabetes. Go Halo.